All right. Welcome to tonight's translated version
Bonsoir tout le
of
monde. Ouverture de la réunion, 8 heures.
the meeting
Adoption de l'ordre du jour.
Que l'ordre du jour soit adopté tel
committee
que
of the whole.
présenté.
Let's go on to the adoption of the agenda. I move that the
Monsieur
agenda
Cardarelli,
be
merci.
adopted as presented.
Ajout.
Seconded by Mr. Cardarelli.
Monsieur Cardarelli.
Any additions?
Rajouter
Mr. Cardarelli.
à l'item
I would like to add
5.2
as new item
une lettre
5.2 a
de
letter
la Ligue de Pickleball.
from the Pickleball League.
Par rapport à avoir la slab à l'Arena Jean-Marc Lalonde gratuitement pour un tournoi.
For the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena's facilities, free of charge for pickleball tournament.
Autre ajout. Tout le monde en
And
parle.
additions, all those
Merci.
in favor, carried.
Déclaration
Now,
pécuniaire.
disclosures of
Aucune.
pecuniary interest,
Merci.
none,
Aucune
five,
délégation.
no
Pétition.
delegations, any
La
petitions.
première,
The first one,
5.1.
5.1,
Monsieur
Mr.
Zant.
Zant.
Un instant.
Hold on a minute, Mr. Mayor. Let me find the documentation with regard to this. There are no resolutions concerning this letter we
Reçu à
received.
titre d'information.
I move that we receive it for information purposes.
Est-ce qu'on
Lettre
peut
de
aller?
Yes.
Hélène.
Moi,
That's
je l'ai
fine.
lu.
I had occasion to
que
read
son
it.
point
I
semblait être
believe
valable.
that the
Oui,
point he's
Monsieur
making
Lennart a
is
fait, vous avez fait
quite
une
valid.
étude.
Mr. Leonard, did you not conduct a
comptage.
study or traffic count of sorts? Yes, indeed. I was asked to prepare a report to conduct a traffic flow study with regard to that area because of the fact that it's being developed quite considerably in this particular case. We find that the study that was
Mais
conducted
ça,
last
tout ça pour dire qu'il n'y avait pas
yielded
les nombres
valid
nécessaires pour
results or
démontrer là, que c'était
tangible results.
dangereux et où
But
qu'il y aurait besoin d'une
and the results
voie de
seem to bear out that there didn't
gauche,
seem to be a
protégée,
dangerous situation
signalisée,
existing there.
protégée.
Mais même si
Well,
la voie n'était pas installée,
Even
mais qu'on
if
avait
the lane
une
had
flèche
not been
verte
properly
pendant
built, but
15-20
that there was
secondes,
only a
qu'on fasse-
green
ceux qui ne savent pas, là, c'est
left
S-Ouest pour pouvoir tourner à
turn
gauche vers le Tim Hortons, puis c'est ça, à gauche pour le Tim
light
Hortons, puis à gauche vers le
left to
Tim
the Tim
vers la sortie
Horton
de
or
Rockford.
right
Est-ce que ça serait pas valable d'au moins de
as you
considérer
exit from the city of Rockland? Would
le
it
fait
not
que
be
peu importe
valid for me to
la
consider
quantité
that,
de véhicules,
notwithstanding
je
the
comprends que
quantity of
vous avez votre
vehicles
étude qui est bonne pour 5 ans.
circulating in that area, and I know that you have a 5-year study that was
C'est justement
conducted
ça
there,
qu'on
would it
regardait,
not be
là, c'est
feasible
un
to
expert,
put in
là,
a yellow or
un expert
flashing
dans
light?
ce domaine-là.
Yes,
Puis,
indeed, we
vérifié,
consulted
dans le
with
fond,
a
c'est qu'il y a une simulation qui est faite
configuration. There was simulation that was resorted to based on the amount of traffic there, the number of vehicles turning left and right, and the waiting time, and if it had impact on
Tout ça est
traffic flow.
calculé, puis après ça,
All of
ça
this is
détermine si c'est
calculated,
requis ou
and
non.
we then
Dans ce
determine
cas-ci,
whether
ça-
this
ça-
is
ça les
required
voit,
or
c'est
not.
Très bien
Reçu
signalisé.
pour l'information.
Well,
Tout le monde en faveur.
move to be received for information purposes. Fine. All those in favor, carried then. Mr. Cardarelli,
Ok,
go ahead.
pour le 5.2,
With
comme
regard
mentionné,
to item 5.2 that I added onto the agenda, Mr. Mayor,
beaucoup de demandes
we do receive a lot of requests, a
pour
lot
des
of requests
locations,
for
surtout pour le département de communautaire,
rental
par rapport à
of
avoir des
premises
locations
through
gratuites.
the
Mais je voudrais
Community
mettre
Services Department
de
for
l'avant
free
une résolution
or
pour
free access
emporter à la
to usually rental
régulière à la
premises.
prochaine
And I'd
réunion
like to bring a resolution at the next meeting of
pour
Town Council to address
donner un peu
this,
plus de
Mr.
pouvoir
Mayor, to indeed give a bit
au
more
département
power to
d'aller
the
avec les politiques qui sont déjà en
department,
place et non de tout le temps
ask
revenir à
it
nous,
to
le
follow
conseil.
the policies already in
Alors,
place
je vais vous
and
lire
not
la
to come
résolution.
before council each and every time this request is made.
Attendu que
And
le
the
conseil
resolution
reçoit
reads as follows.
chaque année
Whereas
plusieurs
council
demandes d'organismes
receives a lot of requests
pour
from
des
different organizations each and every
gratuités et dons
year
divers
for
et attendu que selon la
services
politique
to be granted free of charge, and in keeping with policy LOI
20-01 relative aux organismes
20-01 with regard to
à but
non-profit
lucratif, la
organizations,
distribution de soutien physique
stating that
et technique
the
est
distribution
attribuée
of technical
en
and
fonction
physical
des fonds nécessaires
services are attributed with
entendu
regard
que
to
toute
actual
autre
needs,
demande
and
d'appui
whereas all
ou
other
de dons
requests
ne
for
correspondent
support
pas aux critères
organizations do not
d'admissibilité de la
meet
politique
the
occasionne
criteria
un refus de la part des
and
services
gives
communautaires.
rise
Ce qui crée plusieurs
to a
demandes
refusal
envoyées au
on behalf of
Conseil
community
pour
services
les membres
that
des
then
mêmes
in
raisons.
turn gives
Et
rise to
attendu que le
further
Conseil
consideration
désire
or
que
a
les demandes
request
de gratuité et de
followed
dons ne soient
up
pas
that is sent to
acheminées
Town Council,
directement à
and in
l'ordre
order
du jour
to
des réunions du Conseil. qu'il soit résolu
circumvent
que
this
toute
situation,
demande adressée
then
au
resolve that all
Conseil
requests
sujet à la demande de
made to
gratuité
Town
ou
Council
de dons relative à la
with regards
politique
to the
LOI
asking of free
2014-01
use
soit incluse dans le
of
bulletin de
public facilities
correspondance
be included
hebdomadaire
in
adressé au
the
Conseil
weekly
et
correspondence
qu'il soit
bulletin that is
résolu
addressed
si
to
un
council,
membre
and be
du
it also
Conseil
resolved that if a
désire
member of
voir
Town Council
une
wishes
de
to
ces
see
demandes à l'ordre du jour
one of these
d'une réunion de
requests
conseil pour
appearing
discussion,
on
il doit
a meeting on the agenda. Well, maybe for it to be a bit clearer, I apologize. I didn't understand the financial signing authority matrix. There is we are referred under the currency that is set down at $50,000. Do we adjust ourselves with others, or do we remain at the 50,000 mark? Well, the bylaw states that as soon that a request is over and above $10,000 with regard to the budget that has been approved and the contract is over and above $50,000, then at that time, council has to be approved, has to approve this contingency. That's why we've capped it at $50,000. With other instances, it is included in budget, in brackets. However, council has always approved something that is not included in the budget if it goes under those thresholds. Mr. Simard? I'd just like to follow up concerning this. Are you recommend that we remain at that capped limit, or should we follow the norm that has been adopted, the standard that has been adopted? I want us to be efficient, but I note that we have control mechanisms in place also. But according to you, is this the ideal method that allows us to go along with what has been proposed, or to increase the limit as others have? Well, what we propose is that administration does not have a limit to approve a contract that's contained within the budget. All right. In fact, you've approved this particular budget and this particular project. And during the course of our budgetary talks, we took a look at the scope of the project. And what the administration believes in is this. The approval of council is not necessary for this to be implemented if all conditions have been met. Fine, thank you. Mr. Simard, I agree with the contract that if we approved it at budget, we don't need to reapprove it again. But every extra, even if it's within the budget limit, I want it to be approved by us, though. I don't want, like if somebody wanted to rent a backhoe and it came back, the build light extra, now it's $75,000, but we approved $80,000. That $5,000 we have to approve because you guys have the contract. We had approved a set price. Same thing, that's extra. Buildings or whatever has to come through us. Mr. Leonard, I'm sorry.
You're talking about scope change, or you're talking about like a contingency your change order?
Anything that's extra, like the ambulance there. Let's say that was a change, but let's say it was still within the limits of the budget. If it's the same, let's say we approve 100 grand, but it was supposed to be 80 grand. We approved 20,000 more, it would still be in the 100 grand. So we should approve that extra money because you guys had a set contract, and now the contract is more than what we anticipated. So
the policy is speaking to what your concern is, that if there's a change,
Yes.
we need to come and tell you.
Yes.
Because even if it isn't in budget, so.
but we have to approve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you told me to go out and buy a van,
Yeah.
and I decide that we want a pickup truck,
Yeah.
I need to come and talk to you about that,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Monsieur Michel.
So, just to check what Councilor Savard is saying, I just want to see, so is the worry you have, which would be a worry, if, say we were tendering for a van, as you mentioned, okay, and then we had put in the budget $400,000 for the van, the scope comes back, sorry, the price comes back at $80,000, and then suddenly we're there like, okay, so we still have that $20,000, so why don't we add this on the van, or soup this up and add this, because we're still under? Is that your concern?
That's my concern.
Okay.
But we can't do that.
Okay.
I just said that.
Mais c'est pas la même chose.
C'est bon. We would still have the reports for the less than 5,000, right? Okay.
No, excusez, not less, more than 5,000.
But less than 5,000, we have a report right now, right?
More than 5,000.
But the credit cards,
The-
there's less.
Les cartes de crédit, vous obtenez toutes les transactions, mais au niveau de...
Well, we take a look at all transactions that have been paid out by checks that are over and above that threshold. Sure.
We will provide that to you. We used to print everything in the agenda, so it was, so we tried to scope it down. But that information is public information and available to you at any point in time.
Okay. Another thing, 17.2.4, we should never have a verbal quote, and it shouldn't be us writing the email. The email should be from the supplier saying the quotes. Takes 2 seconds.
You want to speak to that? But
Oh, sorry.
operationally, it's a challenge.
Yeah, sorry. So it's for the verbal quotes, right? So the process we have is we still get verbal quotes, but we still mark that down. So there's a form that we use. So we're probably the people that use that the most. So for example, we want to purchase some brakes, something like that. So we do the 3 verbal quotes. We write down who we spoke to, when we spoke to, and provide that to the treasurer and to their office, so they can verify that we met the policy. And so that's the way that we control that. So they're verbal quotes, but they're written down and they're identified. Yeah, who we spoke to, when, and the amount that they provided us. So it's consistent throughout the process.
Okay, another one, 5.212. In our procedure, we don't have nothing asking about the Form 1000. When we ask for a project, MOL, renovation construction to our facilities, we should have the trades Form 1000 before starting as per the Health and Safety Act. We don't have that in our procedures. As soon as you got a sub-trade coming into our doing work, in our procedures, we should have that Form 1000. We are liable if we don't.
I believe at this time that is included as part of the tenders,
Okay.
and that's how we've covered ourselves, because I know
Okay.
we've had projects held up because someone couldn't provide their WSIB information.
Okay.
But we can add that to the procedures. That's not a problem.
And that's it for me.
Chose?
Anything else? Now, could we have at least... Well, we only receive a recap of this at least once a year, and it's not enough. It would be interesting to have an idea of the progression of this particular system that's been implemented, at least to allow us to know where we're at on a regular basis. We spoke about the project and the fact of explaining the project. Even if it's just for information purposes, Mrs. Collier might address what you've raised, but what you're referring to is the total project list, and this list takes into account all capital expenditure projects, and you deals with the percentage of progress at which individual projects are at a given time when this list is released. All those in favor then? Carried. Thank you. Let's go on now to item 9.5. Mr. Cardarelli, I believe we're all done now. Is it 9.1 or 9.5? Item 9.5. The Council of Clarence and Rockland receive staff report, and that be resolved also that Municipal Council hereby adopts a pregnancy and parental leave policy for members of council. Questions? All those in favor? Carried. I knew somebody was going to say something about this. Let's go on now to the industrial street matter. Councillor Zant. resolved, whereas an agreement has already been put in place between both parties in which it holds a condition that the City of Clarence and Rockland must extend Industrial Street before June the 30th, 2019, and whereas the department has considered other alternatives in order to extend Industrial Street and connect it to the private roadway on the Clarence Rockland Arena lands, be it resolved that Municipal Council hereby approves option A, being the option that extends Industrial Street to the private roadway on the Clarence Rockland Arena, with a roundabout at a cost of $309,000 to be financed by $203,199 from the deferred revenue of the sale of the land and $105,801 from the Road Reserve Fund. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Any questions? Councillor Zant. Well, I think we'd all previously talked about the roundabout. Did not impact that particular part of the land and that comes into play. I know that the administration has the mandate to promote, well, not promote. What I'm trying to say, it seems as if I'm like Michel, I'm emulating Michel here. I apologize, I'm sorry, I thought it's a joke. Michel, that's a joke, Michel, that's a joke. But, in any event, what they believe would be the best way to go about doing things. We talked on many occasions about the fact that the roundabout would be the ideal solution, given the amount of trucks that travel in that area. I don't know if our recommendations were taken into consideration. Mr. Leonard? Well, Mr. Mayor, that's the reason why we brought the report back to you. The recommendation might be changed. We remain with the opinion that option A is the best option to meet with all security concerns that have been raised, but option B talks about the extension without the roundabout as well as associated costs. We're talking here about $309,000 for the roundabout, as opposed to the the roundabout, not the cul-de-sac, but the roundabout. But essentially, it's the same thing in this particular case. Things work out in the same way with applications, with methods applied. $309,000 as compared to $271,000. Both options are before us. Council can decide to change the recommendation and opt for option B or A. Well, now, normally a roundabout is put in to control traffic from streets that crisscross each other. But the roundabout, the intersection, though, in play here is located prior to the roundabout. I don't see the use of putting in a roundabout in that area, in that spot. Mr. Leonard, you see, before this was extended right up to the CIH property, it was a cul-de-sac, and it met the standards set out. When it was extended, the street was extended, where access was granted so that vehicles could leave through one particular lane. So they'd put in a roundabout, and it would do exactly the same thing as what it was intended to do beforehand. ATG, for example, built some buildings around in that area, or some facilities. So this being said, the roundabout is about the only viable solution that will allow us to meet the safety standards set out and to allow vehicles to make a turn or to turn there. If not, the extension that was proposed would continue on through the CIH property, and that would leak onto the existing streets there. So you don't have to perform a 180 degrees to get onto the CIH property. Yes, that's right. We'd be putting in a roundabout that would have the same mission as a cul-de-sac would have. That's right. You see, we want to avoid that heavy trucks wind up in an institutional type zone along with the school and the arena there. And there are a lot of pedestrians and people that are parked in that area also that might cause a problem. So, and this, it would exit further back, but it represents a bigger detour for a long detour for those trucks that make use of that area. And we need to meet the standards set out. We have 90 meters that we can play with, or then after, given that, we have to offer a way of egressing from that area either through a cul-de-sac type arrangement. And that was thought out with this particular need in mind, given the engineers that worked with this project or in this project. When we're talking about safety, what was identified from a safety standpoint? Why a roundabout? Well, you see, after 90 meters, it becomes very difficult for mid to big size truck to back up. The other option, other than getting onto a private property, even if you're backing up 5 or 10 meters, there might be some people or pedestrians that might try to walk onto the street. There's a heavy truck, and I don't know how big those trucks are, how much they measure. They'll try to get onto or get back into the entrance that they initially missed by backing up or turning in. That's a dangerous situation, especially with service vehicles. The same rule applies. Given a site plan, any entrance that is over and above 90 meters or 90 meters, the owners of the said property need a fire route or a cul-de-sac to allow vehicles or service vehicles to have access and to turn around. The same rule would apply to service vehicles going in that particular area that we're talking about. They need a roundabout to make a proper turn. That's the reason why it was proposed in that particular fashion. Mr. Bouchard, well, I believe, of course, I answer Mr. Lenard's contention. If I take a look at the distances and the 53-foot truck that they're alluding to, I don't see how a truck will be able to make a complete turn. I can't see this. If you're telling me that the distances that we have here is sort of like a cut and paste, if you wish, of what has been recommended, what trucks are built to maneuver around, I can't see how the truck is able to make a proper turn. The other thing I'm wondering is that if I'm in a roundabout and if I'm driving a truck, I'm just going to continue straight ahead and just leave through there. Well, there will be signs put up saying, well, trucks are not allowed in that stretch of roadway. All of this is simulated, of course. We have engineers or consultants, if you wish, that give us an idea as to what is needed for to allow proper turn radiuses for trucks that wish to make a turn there. These are simulated figures, but they follow along with what our experts have suggested to us. What we don't want is for transports to wind up in a residential area. They already have a hard time turning right, leading on to Highway 17 or 174. You don't want them either winding up in this particular residential project or in the arena parking lot. Anything else? Mrs. Collier had something to add? Did you have anything else to add, Mrs. Collier?
That we've had a struggle with this intersection because when the arena was built and the industrial park was developed, and it wasn't all as originally planned. So now we have a situation that we have to fix, and it feels like a band-aid solution. But I think that the round point, the traffic circle will service the ratepayers the best, and that it won't add frustration to our residential people on the east side of CIH.
So we're talking a difference of about 30,000.
Ouais, tu te souviens d'aller dans le rond-point, donc.
You might as well go along with the roundabout. All those in favor? Fine then. Carried. Let's go on now to item 9.8. Mr. Lalonde. 9.8. All right. 9.7, Mr. Lalonde. Oh, I'm sorry. 9.7. The Committee of the Whole recommends that we purchase at a cost of $550 per month the Digibot data system for town use. Seconded by Mr. Cardarelli. Questions? Why did not figure in our budgetary talks? No, it was not. We performed work with regard to this very recently. Because we did not know that we needed this particular system. We had to perform necessary research following the adoption of the budget. We needed to take a look at what needed to be done in the future, but it was mentioned last year when we were subject to budgetary pressures, and that led to an 11% increase, we needed to implement a particular system that would control costs. And so we were able to take a look into necessary systems last winter or this spring. We're talking about $550 per month, and the current budget will adopt this or will absorb this. It will be a budgetary pressure next year, though, approximately a $7,000 pressure. However, it will be much more efficient. I see. Councillor Zant. Well, Mr. Boucher, you just stated that you don't know how much it's going to cost us in the long run, but you stated that this was discussed at the last round of budgetary talks, but you didn't come up with a proper request. Well, it's not an easy process. We asked 3 companies to resort to presentations to us. We saw what they could all do. The system ought to integrate itself to our accounting system quite readily. So Mr. Desnoyers can explain to you why this system that we've chosen is able to integrate itself with our data. The others that we assessed were much more costly than this one, but could not do the work that we needed it to do. I have no contention with the software that you've chosen. We know that. I just want to make sure that 1 year is enough time for us to come up with an alternate solution. It's not, I'm not attacking you directly. There's a reason why we've set up a budget and adopted it, and I'd like to see as many things as can be put into a budget in that budget. But, well, you see, this all comes into play with our own software. We have to make sure that other companies that offer products that are compatible with our system. So we're talking about saving $550 per month. Well, firstly, all of our service is going to be electronic. We're eliminating most of the paper work. We're going to be paperless, if you wish. The parent will be able to input his child's or her child's data into the system. The school board functions along those lines. We haven't assessed as to how much time it would take, or etc. There's also the delivery of electronic invoicing and communication with parents. For example, if we have a shutdown, all we have to do is to send an email through the SAM system, and everybody will receive this particular email all at once. So the 7,000 might not be a pressure or a budgetary pressure at the end of the year. I'm in agreement with what you're saying. Yes, it could be that it might not be a pressure after all. All those in favor, carried. Let's go on now to the renewal of grass cutting. Mr. Simard, it seems as if he knows that he's going to be handpicked for reading some of those convoluted bylaws. Let's see what he says. Just stop talking with everybody. Just read the resolution. Yes, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. Okay. Whereas the current grass cutting contractors have provided quality service since the beginning of their contract, and whereas the community services recommend that these contracts be renewed for the reasons mentioned in report LOI 2019-04-02, the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council to adopt a bylaw to authorize the Director of Community Services to sign for contract extension agreements for grass cutting with J.W. Bastien for the North Sector and with Bourgette Lawn Care for the South Sector for the year 2019, and to extend the contracts for 1 additional year as recommended. Seconded by Councillor Lalonde. Any questions? Councillor Grimard? Well, I don't know. And I'm not all that aware of what that company does on the north side of the City of Clarendon and Rockland. But I've received a record number of complaints of grass that has not been properly cut for Ward 3. You're very satisfied? You don't want to you want to extend this contract? Is it that you don't want to go back to tender? Personally, I've received a lot of complaints in my sector as opposed to other previous years. You know, this small stretch of grass that has not been cut leading on to the arena or along the sides of sidewalks or some lawn areas. Why are we deciding to extend this contract? Well, Mr. Boucher, I can save you from answering this if you don't wish, because I dealt with this. All right. Yeah, he was kept pretty much busy and on his toes tonight. Well, what happens is this. We're going to propose that we go to contract to resolve this particular matter. We might hire student help, resort to student manpower last year. But we could hop on to the existing contract or latch on to existing contract as a second party. It would cost us too much. We'll come up with a similar type contract as theirs, but for similar services. When we're talking about cutting the grass along the boulevard and the sidewalk, look, I know there was I was told the reason why proper service was not offered because of the too much rain. We're going to try to improve the service. So you're saying that your particular department will hire students? Yes, and we'll come up with a contract and hire a contractor that will in turn hire students to cut the grass there. Councillor Simard, did we go to tender when? Is this the second year that we've renewed this? No. We've entered into 3-year contracts along with 2-year options. Those new fire stations, will they have their grass cut through that particular service? No. The fire station is making use of the current services that are being offered to the city of Clarence and Rockland. I see. We'd have to include that in the budget next year again. Well, well. Look, Mr. Cardarelli. Cardarelli? Yes. All right. I still have problems with your name. I apologize. Is it normal practice not to go to tender in essence? Well, normally the contracts run for a 3-year length. We always have a 2-year additional extension or option for extension. And that's part and parcel of our regular way of doing things with trusted contractors. Any other questions then? All those in favor? Carried. Let's go on now to amendments to the daycare center. The Committee of the Whole recommends that we approve the work plan that has been presented. Yes. I'm sorry. I have... Mr. Cousineau, do you have anything to say with regards to this? Well, no. I'm very happy to present my first report to Town Council. And if you have any questions with regards to the work plan, I don't have any questions, but I'd like to say excellent report. Given the resolutions, if we are to approve what has been suggested, we need to go into details as to what has been suggested for the enlightenment of all of our ratepayers. Thank you. Initiatives Smart City. Mr. Simard, the Committee of the Whole approve the start of negotiations with Smart City Capital, SCC, for a potential partnership to make Clarence Rockland Canada's first 10-gig city, which would make high-speed internet accessible to all residents and businesses of Clarence and Rockland. Seconded by Councillor Zant. Everybody's received the information with regards to this? Yes. I'd just like to ask this, Mr. Mayor. The fact that we're entering into this particular negotiation with the Smart City folks, this fact will not lead us to a budgetary shortfall. Someone told me at one point in time we should do something. We should do something with improving the city of Clarence and Rockland's smart city status. And we've seen a lot of nice pictures, promoting the smart city concept. We've even seen Mrs. Collier's truck in those particular pictures. I just want to make sure that our negotiations that we've entered into do not lead us down the wrong path. Mrs. Collier?
Discussions with these three companies who have partnered together. And we're really bringing this to you tonight so everyone's aware of the fact that they have approached us. It's a very exciting initiative for them. They've chosen us specifically. I believe it's explained very well in their cover letter, but they chose us specifically because we put a Smart City application in last year, so some of the money and time and effort. So we were recognized for that. Also, we've done business with Jacobs. And you may not be as familiar, but they bought CH2M Hill, which is an engineering company which we've used on numerous occasions, and they recommended us to this Nokia Smart City Group as the first city in Canada. They tell us that they can have this in place by June. We will not agree to anything until we've cycled back with you. So we're just asking permission to pursue this a bit further. They have huge agreements and ready to go. They've put this in place in a number of municipalities in the United States. Chattanooga is one of them where it's been very successful. So what they're going to come back with is a number of options. They totally get, because I made it very clear to them, that we can't spend any money. But what they're going to bring back is potential options for the municipality to make money. We don't fully understand that yet, but we're going to bring those options back to you before we agree to anything. So we're just asking for permission tonight to pursue this. They're ready to go, eager, tons of work done on this specific thing, and they're trying to make cities smarter because we need to go there, and it will help our economic development for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's my thing with that is that, you know, when you're a small municipality like us and from an economics development standpoint, you want to position yourself as to having an in versus other communities that don't. When you can assert yourself as being this, so when you want to look at, there is an investment to be there, but with that being said, that investment can certainly pay off quite a bit. So hence, when we talk about the new money from government coming in now and looking at how things could get involved, like for June, so I too want to see how much it is. But at the
initial investment is zero.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
Long term.
It's 5 years from now. There may be some operating costs that we've got to look at. But the idea is, and I mean, this is, if you look at the Smart City Capital website, they're an enormous corporation. The idea is that we would have a revenue generating stream to cover off those operating costs. But we need to understand that better. But capital investment, zero.
Okay, so the first phase would only be Rockland, the city itself, and then the second phase would be outside of Rockland, like Bourget and all that.
Correct.
Saint-Pascal.
So within a year, that will be done.
I'm not sure.
Because I told them that they could not pursue this because they wanted just to do Rockland. They had that figured out. I said, you go away. We're not doing just Rockland. We have to do the entire municipality. They got it once I explained. And so it's all or nothing.
Well, we need to enter into that particular phase. The internet was one, gas, electricity. That was one of the phases that we have to get involved in to ensure economic well-being of our area. The provincial and the federal levels of government are also involved into this. And if you put this, I love this concept, Mr. Mayor. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Zant. Also, Mrs. Chouanière, we have more and more employees now that work from their individual homes. Now, with Bourget, they might start from the southern part. In Rockland, everybody has access to this, but south of that particular area, there are a lot of people that don't have access to this particular service. We need, as I stated, the services to cater to the needs of those people that more and more now are called upon to work at home. We have to adapt, Mr. Cardarelli.
I just want to make sure, especially when they're talking about revenue streams, that our citizens' privacy will not be infringed on data collection and sell up. Again, this is without knowing what it is, that's just something that I want to make sure that we don't.
But by law, they can't.
One of those things that the federal government is taking a look at is to promote some programs within certain communities to make sure that people are not called upon each and every day to travel in the downtown core of some major urban areas. You need an excellent high-speed internet system to be able to ensure that the system is properly implemented. I've previously spoken to Mr. Francis concerning this, and he's certainly well aware of what's what. Well, the same thing applies to Highway 174, Mr. Mayor. Look, we have been chosen amongst municipalities throughout Canada as so. Of course, you can obtain a lot of grants concerning this. Mr. Cousineau, I'd like to mention also, because of the fact that I'm married to a school principal here in Rockland, the feedback that she gave me and the benefits that this could bring about to schools and people that work in schools, parents, the benefits are incalculable. We can't come up with a downside, as to make use of a popular English saying. All those in favor then? Carried. Do you have any questions for any department heads? Let's start off with Mr. Lalonde. No, I'm okay. Councillor Simard, not more than 15 minutes. Eh, Mr. Simard? Fine. Our grader has destroyed, if I might use that term, this stretch of asphalt. What happened? Well, we had road conditions assessed by our inspector to ensure that our roadway network met with the minimum standards, and we'll have to identify streets again that need to be worked on and to come up with a plan that from an operational standpoint can be implemented rather quickly. Councillor Levert? I received a complaint in my ward for those areas that had been frozen and quickly thawed out because of the change of weather, and I'd like to compliment what you've done to alleviate flooding concerns. It's hard to understand when you assess, by the way, if I hop onto another point, the condition of a particular roadway. If that the Gagnon Road only earned 6 points out of potential 60 points before anything is done. Well, Mr. Mayor, there's a point system that's in place, and that gives us an independent gauge that we have to rely on, that we can rely on to perform repairs or not on a given street. Mr. Lalonde, please. You're fidgeting with this, and you're fidgeting with that. We can't even hear ourselves think. Let me answer this quickly. So it's a matter of expediency, Mr. Mayor. And it's a question of course, roadway conditions, and are there any schools or churches close by, the social aspect. All of this is taken into consideration, and a points total is given to a particular street. It's not that we are not in agreement that the street is in good condition. It is not. But can we direct traffic onto this street as opposed to another street? This study has been conducted with this in mind. Fine. Thank you. Councillor Bouchard, nothing? Councillor Cardarelli, no? Councillor Zant, concerning the daycare center issue, we mentioned that the agreement that we entered into ran from June to next June. Can we enter into a daycare agreement at the same date at which we enter into agreements with other contractors or service providers? Well, the daycare center has to jive with the school year, the beginning and the ending of school year. Councillor Godouin, Councillor Chouanière. South of Ainsley, in my neck of the woods, there's a new light that has been put up. Or is it coming, or what? Well, what? Well, they've tried to put in lights. They were defective, and they had to replace them anew. I see. Your road work team, I know there are a lot of roads that have been banged up, but they're doing good work. We've received a lot of complaints, but they take care of those complaints, and they take care of them expeditiously. Of course, sometimes weather doesn't help out. Thank you to all you and all of your employees. Adjournment. Hey, we're all finished, Mr. Zant. We're all finished. Oh, are we? Adjournment is called at 10:18, and Mr. Zant is all finished and over and done with. Thank you, folks. Good evening to all.